I'm Alex Larson, dietitian, Ironman finisher, and host of Endurance Eats, the podcast where we break down the science of endurance nutrition and turn it into clear, practical nutrition advice to revolutionize how you think about fueling your body. So grab a seat, or keep moving if you're out training, and let's get started. Welcome back to the Endurance Eats podcast. Today we're diving into a topic that every runner, cyclist, and triathlete should be paying attention to, myself included, is strength training. Joining me today is my very good friend, Teele. He is the founder of Dialed Health. He's a certified personal trainer who specializes in strength training for cyclists. After racing downhill, mountain biking, and coaching in the general fitness space for over a decade, Derek's now on a mission to help endurance athletes get stronger, be more resilient, and perform better without living in the gym. Whether you're completely new to strength training or trying to level up your routine, this episode is going to give you a practical roadmap to getting started and staying consistent and seeing results that will show up on the trail, the road, or wherever you chase endurance. So before we dive into today's interview with Teele, I want to spend a few minutes talking specifically about fueling for strength training. Because I feel like a lot of endurance athletes will assume that they don't need to eat as much because strength workouts aren't as long and there might be some breaks between sets. It's not like this consistent level of work that we see as cardio junkies. There's no long run, there's no long ride, it's no big deal, right? Not exactly. Even though strength sessions may only last 30 to 60 minutes for you, they can still be a very high intensity, high effort, and that makes them very glycogen dependent. That means that they rely heavily on carbohydrate stores for energy, just like you would in a tempo run or a hard interval or hill repeats. And if you're doing these strength sessions even after a cardio workout, which a lot of athletes tend to do, you're already going to go into it with depleted glycogen stores, which means you're not going to feel as strong. So please know that strength training is not low carb work. It's very explosive. There's fast twitch movement and resistance training. It pulls a lot of energy from stored glycogen in your muscles. When we're under fueling our strength training, you might get through the workout, but you're going to feel like you're less likely to actually hit those heavier loads in all of your sets. You might not be able to maintain good form, which could put you at risk for injury. We're trying to prevent injury here with our endurance training through strength training. And then you're not going to recover as well either. Because the object is to maintain or build muscle, when we're consistently underfueling that strength workout, it actually limits the muscle gains that we're going to see. So we want to fuel these things really well. And yes, carbs matter, even when you're just lifting. So if you're just going to do a standalone strength workout, I would make sure to have a very carb-rich snack and or meal before your strength training session. I'd allow enough time for it to digest. You don't want to go into that heavy lifting with a lot of food in your stomach, just like with any other cardio workout. This is going to sound pretty similar to my advice with any run or cycling workout. Think like a banana with peanut butter, a half a bagel with honey, applesauce and a few pretzels, a small granola bar, or some sports drink. It doesn't have to be fancy or even large, but you want to give yourself some fresh energy to help spare some of that muscle glycogen. If you're doing a strength session after a cardio workout, I would typically recommend having some sort of refueling in that transition time between the workout. And then likely even during that strength session, I would maybe put some carbs in your bottle as you're sipping between sets, just to keep yourself feeling really strong throughout that entire strength session. And then afterwards, it is all about the refueling. You want to get plenty of protein, anywhere from I'd say 20 to 40 grams, depending on if you're having a snack or a meal. If you're doing a snack, you could certainly do like 20 grams and then make sure to have a meal within 2 hours. And then of course, pairing that with plenty of carbohydrates to reload those glycogen stores so you're ready for the next workout. If you have more of a break between that first workout and then your strength session, you certainly can just go into that refueling and then preparing for that strength session later on in the day, having that snack beforehand and kind of breaking it up between the two. But a lot of people will do back to back. And so therefore you want to keep yourself fueled throughout the entirety of the workouts. And I will say fueling consistently day after day, that is where you're going to get the most bang out of your strength workout and your cardio workouts. All right, let's get started here. Let's bring Derek on and talk all things strength training for endurance athletes. For people that don't know your story, you were in a very horrific car accident. How long ago was this?
It's been 18 months, year and a half.
You were hit by a car. They were going, 60? They didn't stop at a stop sign. They ran the stop sign. It's a hit and run. I can still picture myself sitting in my living room when I saw the news on Instagram, and I just was like, because you and I have known each other for a while now. I've been on your podcast a couple times, and I just wanted to drive over and hug your whole family.
Oh, thank you.
I was just like, I was so worried. And then truly just so in awe of your recovery and just how, I mean, you were like, you came out of the hospital and you had this, like, I'm trying to think what it was on your leg, some sort of like brace, and you were doing some sort of like movement, like intended movement, like with like just either body weight or I can't remember what it was, but I was just like, man, like I got to give you so much credit for going in with such an amazing attitude of recovery and coming back.
Thank you. I could not wait to move after getting out of the hospital. I mean, the first thing I did was grab this little looped band and just started doing band pull aparts. And I actually went from the hospital to my parents' house because I have 3 little boys at home, and my leg was so sensitive. You could not touch it. Like,
Yeah.
you literally couldn't even lay your
Yeah,
hand on it.
and your boys are little. Like they're
Yeah,
my
at
kids'
the time they
age.
were 3 and 5. Now they're
Yeah.
4 and 6. And I was like, if they ran at me, even me just flinching,
Yeah.
it was too risky. So I'm at my parents'
Yeah.
house, sitting on their couch, starting to do some band pull aparts, some any type of stretch or anything I could do for my neck or my upper body. I just did it, and then eventually just progressed it and documented it fairly well through my Instagram and my Instagram story. I definitely did some very intense podcast episodes. Like, I went on Ted King's podcast and talked about it in the height of all the fear that I had, because I
Yeah.
had debilitating PTSD
It's a
from the
huge
experience.
trauma for you.
Yeah, and I'm happy that I did that. I definitely don't regret it. It was cool to kind of timestamp the feelings,
Yeah.
because thankfully I've worked on all of that and moved through it. So I hope that I never sound that way again, you know.
Yeah.
And so we captured it, and hopefully it helped a lot of people. But yeah, it's been really great to be able to heal and move forward, and just another reminder of why I believe in what I do so much, to be honest.
Well, we're going to talk about strength training today, which is I mean, you're just a pro at the strength training stuff. I've been on your app before. I've done a lot of your strength training workouts on there. They're very creative. I will say that. Like, I am always impressed with like how many different ways you can strength train.
Yeah.
It's not just like sit-ups, push-ups, and like squats. Like, there's so many different ways that you can get a good like strength training workout in. I will fully admit I have not strength trained in months. I just have so much going on, and so like I'm just using time as an excuse for sure, because between my 3 kids and like being the CEO of the household, the CEO of my business, and then my husband also recently launched his own business and quit his like full-time job, and so I've been like, my title of that business is like business manager slash director of all the things slash like marketing. And so I've just got like a ton going on, and it's really hard for my brain to being like, oh yeah, we're going to add on another like 20-30 minutes a few times a week to strength train. But it's on my to-do list for sure. I think other people who are cardio junkies like me are kind of in the same boat, where they know that it's beneficial, right? Like, we could talk about the benefits. Great for preventing injury, right? Great for body composition goals. Definitely increases like power on the bike, and power, like, it supports lots of things like performance wise. What else am I missing as far as benefits? There's like endless benefits, but
I think the injury prevention is huge.
yeah.
And there's also the durability aspect and increasing time to exhaustion. There's a lot of technical terms. Essentially, it benefits everything except your VO2 max. That's, of course, what we can work on during our endurance sport. And I think what's so interesting about strength training is that the benefits you get from it can't be gained from just a little more volume of running, or a little more volume of cycling, or like low cadence efforts on the bike, or more time in the pool. Like, you can't just go and get all of these body composition benefits, muscle building, the actual increasing your maximal power output. All of these things happen during strength training. And really, it's just building this body that's durable, that can sustain a lifetime of sport. It's just such an investment into all of those things. And I think what happens, because of the busy lifestyle that a lot of us lead. And I think that you're experiencing that at like the very pointy end with all of your, I was going to say titles, but real duties. By the way, I'm bringing CEO of the household home to my wife. That is
Yeah.
awesome. She
Yeah.
deserves that title, and I
Yeah.
need to tell her that's what she does.
It's true.
Yes.
I mean, my husband he's my assistant. I give him so much crap. I'm sure people listening are like, I think Alex hates her husband. Like, no, he's wonderful, but like, he knows, like, he's like, Alex, like, I could not survive without you. Like, you need to. I always need you in my life, like, just for
Oh
so
my
many
gosh.
reasons. But so yeah, like, CEO of the household is
Yeah.
100% like a very big job, and whether it's the mom or the dad, or like it's a shared role, but like, yeah, I take the majority of the role, and it's a lot.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And even though strength training requires a level of patience that is a little different than endurance sports, in that, like, it's easy to get the runner's high feeling through almost any endurance sport, and to basically be like, okay, I'm going to get a good sweat. I'm going to get the heart rate up. This is going to feel like a workout. And sometimes that can be hard to tap into with strength work, because if you're at home and the kids are running by and you have an interruption and you naturally need to have some rest time between sets, there's a lot of friction to getting your brain to turn off. And that's where I think that my position becomes more valuable, is that I create programs that help limit the decision fatigue that people have to go through with their strength workouts. They know that they're making the most out of whatever equipment they have or whatever time they have. And that alone takes a lot of experience as a trainer to be like, okay, you have one band. Can we do a 30-minute total body workout with this band without you just doing the same movement over and over and over again? And so that takes a lot of experience and creativity, and also making sure that you're not just doing something to do something. Like, I even noticed this on Instagram. Okay, not everything looks good on Instagram. Some of the best movements in strength are very simple. They are not sexy. They will not catch anyone's eye. So how do I stay within my protocols and standards as a coach, and but put out content that's actually eye catching? And so you have to come at it from these different layers. And it's the same thing with someone who has two pieces of equipment at home. What's the best I can give them with this piece of equipment? Because we are going to have to make compromises, because you don't have access to everything. But
Yeah, you
what
don't need those big ropes and like, like that's what I
we were
always see
doing
on
those yesterday.
Instagram. I don't worry
Yeah, we were
about
doing those yesterday morning at my studio. Actually, I trained some people in person in the mornings. Yeah, that's the thing. If we have it, it's great, and it could be a tool to our advantage. But if you don't, you can definitely still get a great workout. It just takes a little bit of help sometimes to get there.
Yeah, I definitely am the like at home. If I were to strength train and go back to it, because for a while I was doing it, I have dumbbells, I think from 6 pounds all the way up to, I want to say like 35, in like 5 pound increments. I've got the bands. I've got like that aerobic step with like the lift. So if I have to like add some elevation,
I
it's
actually
not
haven't
a,
seen one of those in a while, but they are
have you?
useful. No.
They are really nice, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I have a bench, but it's not like I need to get the one that I can adjust like upright if I need to. That's next on my list, is maybe swap out my bench. But my kids
That does
honestly
help.
use it for, making forts and jumping off of, and so it actually has dual roles in addition
Yeah.
to many other things. So
It'll be better for forts once it can incline. That's for sure.
yeah,
You're going to
I
raise
love
the
that.
ceiling on that fort a little bit.
Right? Yeah, that they'll be so excited about that. For those that are really busy, and we know that we all know that we need to add strength training in, and if it's really tough to do, what would you say would be like the bare minimum that people could do to get almost bang for their buck? You know what I mean? Where they're going to get some benefit out of it, but it's not going to be all time consuming, especially in like peak season. Obviously, off season, when you have a little bit more time, you can focus a little bit more. It's just strength training. But if someone's in summer peak training block, what's kind of the time frame? Like, how many times a week? And then what's like the bare minimum? This is me asking, like, can I
Yeah.
get away with 20 minutes like 2-3 times a week?
And it's a very valid question for an endurance athlete, because you ultimately want to get the most gains for doing the least amount of work, because you have that shared volume and training stress from all of your actual endurance activities. So I always have to remind endurance athletes that you're not being lazy by wanting to do the bare minimum. It's that you're already doing 6, 8, 10, 12 plus whatever hours a week, and you want to make sure that your training's optimized. So it's definitely not an angle of laziness. It's just the reality of the sport. And so I would feel very confident for anybody who's wondering what the bare minimum is, that 2 sessions per week is the bare minimum to make progress. If you do 1 session per week, and science will show this as the true maintenance standpoint, because essentially, if you look at the super compensation curve, which is your recovery adaptation curve, it will show over a week period that you initially do a strength training session and your performance declines because you're fatigued. Well, by the time 2 or 3 days goes by, hopefully you recovered back to a baseline to where your standard level was before the session. But because you adapted to it, your fitness level goes beyond that initial level of performance. And it'd be like 4 or 5 days later where that curve hits its highest arc, where you want to try and catch another training session by that arc to continue the stepping stone of progress. Because if you don't, it just curves back down, and that goes over the course of about a week. And that's why maintenance is seen as 1 day per week in the gym. The problem is, and the thing I feel like I constantly have to remind people, is that if you have 1 session per week and you miss it, which you probably will, especially because it's so inconsistent in your overall schedule, then you go 2 weeks and now you're for sure on a decline. Now you miss 2 weeks a month and you missed half your workouts for that month. It's just a slow decline. So for a lot of people who go from training 3 days a week in the off season to 1 day a week in the summer, what happens is they start missing sessions, and pretty soon they're just starting over every single year. So I would recommend to get out of that habit, even if it meant you don't increase your volume in the winter wildly. It'd be nice to just dial it up and dial it down a little bit. And so commit to 2 sessions per week, even if the intensity is low and the overall volume is low. That frequency will lead to the most gains over the long term. So 2 sessions per week is the minimum for progress, but it's also the most that a lot of people want to do because of their actual sport interfering with it. And so within that each session, you have a lot of range of intensities and also volume. You could do you could do a 20-minute body weight workout at home with no equipment, or just a foam roller or something like that. Or that one session could be 90 minutes of full gym access and pretty high RPE, like rate of perceived exertion. So within those 2 sessions per week, there's a huge variation in intensities and experience levels. And that's kind of where I would get your mindset.
For me, I'm thinking of like my week where I have Tuesdays and Fridays off because I have kids home. But otherwise, I'm training probably 8 to 10 hours a week on the bike. And so usually the weekends are long workouts, like back to back. Like we're doing at least an hour and a half, 2 hours on like a Saturday, long, like maybe endurance effort 2.5 on Sunday. And then even on Monday, I might do a long workout as well. And there's like the intensity will kind of range between those. And then during the week, they're a little bit shorter workouts, but they're usually like a tempo threshold, like they're a higher, and like some VO2 max mixed in there. Where would it be the most advantageous? Like what workouts should I look at to maybe add in a strength session? And should I do it like at a different time of the day, or should I just do it after the workout? Like talk me through the logistics of planning where to fit in those two 20 to 30 minute sessions.
Yeah, great question. So we'll kind of start with ideal and then realistic,
Yeah. Okay.
because
Love
I think
this.
both of those things, and there's also some debatable options in there as well
Sure.
from a science perspective. But with your schedule, I think I would leave your weekends to focusing on getting in that training volume and doing the recovery outside of it that is going to help. You don't want to add training stress by like doing every Instagram recovery thing you can think of, but a little foam rolling, some static stretching, these things go a long way in making you feel a lot better. And so that's what I would focus on over the course of the weekend. Maybe a little bit of activation, like band around your ankles, just to make sure the hips are firing, a little work for your core, after your second ride day or something like that. But really focus on the sessions. When you come into the week, let's say you have 2 strength sessions that you want to do. What it sounds like to me is that, do you only have one rest day
I have
from the bike, or
technically
do you have
two.
two?
Two. So like Saturday, Sunday, Monday are like lots of riding. Like
Right.
I mean, I get like a majority of my hours in like those 3 days. And then Tuesday's a rest day. I'll do Wednesday will be like usually hour and a half like endurance effort. And then Thursday is a harder workout. And then Friday I have off because I have all three kids home on Fridays. So I'm just trying to figure out like, okay, I know I'm really tired on Tuesdays because I did massive amounts of volume for 3 days. For me, I'm like, oh, I really like, I'm so tired. I really don't want to do a strength session. I'm like, would I fit it in Wednesday? But then what's my other day? You know what I mean? That's where I kind of struggle with like, where do I fit this in?
Okay. So one rule I would recommend for most people is to keep a rest day, just a day of no intensity.
Nothing.
You
Like
if
not even like a light swim, you triathletes out there.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I mean, gosh, if you're gonna take your kids around the block on a bike ride,
Yeah.
something like that,
Yeah.
okay, that works. Going for walks, doing whatever. Some people, yeah, I mean, you work with psychos like I do. They have to have a structured. If it's a 30-minute bike ride with their kids around the block to the park and back, they will track it. So
It'll
I
be on their
understand
Strava.
if you need to structure that in, you can do it. Just know that there's a day of just no intensity. I won't get into the weeds on that, but try
Yeah.
and keep one rest day. So for you, it sounds like you're either working with Tuesday or did you say Thursday
Or
is your
Friday,
what
yeah.
days with the kids?
All three kids are home on Friday, so it's a really
Okay.
hard day for me to like get out on the bike. So I usually, I mean, I could do a strength training session on that day,
Okay.
but
So that's why I
Tuesdays,
was asking. So
Tuesdays also, I have kids home that day.
but and Tuesday's the day you're tired from your long ride.
Yeah,
So
yeah. After 3 days of like long hard training, yeah,
yeah, and I think from just an energy standpoint, that's a really good day to recover
yeah,
that day. And so for you, I'd probably choose Tuesday as your rest day. Now, this is where it gets a little complicated because you're going to have to figure out how to get a strength session in while you're watching your kids on
yeah,
Thursday,
yeah. So my
correct?
20 minutes actually ends up being like 90.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it can. And maybe you'll get lucky every now and then and you don't get interrupted and you can get half the workout done before you do.
yeah,
But that is also an upside to strength training is that you can get the work done. And if you have to spread out the 20-minute workout over an hour, I mean, I know how it is. Like sometimes it'll take me 3 hours to watch a 15-minute YouTube video at
yeah,
home or something. Like
yeah,
I
yeah.
totally
You
get
have
that
feral
dynamic.
boys like I do. Like they're
Yes.
just yeah,
And when it's all you, like I really do understand how difficult it could be, but you're not going to get out for any other type of training session. So I would almost see it as a bonus and like an exciting thing. Like, oh, I can actually get some quality training in that's going to have a positive impact on this day where I would have otherwise done nothing. That is the reality. So I would dedicate that day to your strength training session. Now, the days in between, ideally, I would like to add your strength training session to a high intensity ride day. And this keeps your hard days hard and your easy days easy. And to be honest with you, this is something I changed my mind about over the years. Initially, my thought was, well, if you go too hard on one day, there's just going to be too much recovery time afterwards. But typically, people's high intensity rides will be shorter in volume. And then it kind of allows for that extra energy to be used for the strength workout. So I think it works better. Now, did you say your Wednesday is a zone 2 ride typically?
usually it's a zone two. Yeah, because I'm coming back. I mean, Tuesday was that recovery day, and then Wednesday typically. I mean, sometimes I'll swap it just based off of schedule, but like typically it's an endurance ride. Yeah,
And I understand wanting to essentially like shake the cobwebs out after the recovery day, like ramp back into the week. But with strength training, having at least a full day in between your training sessions really makes a big difference to how well you adapt to the stimulus. It just takes a little bit longer for the muscles to actually recover. So the problem that you're facing is for one, you're going to have to figure out how to work out with your kids there. And I know there's a way to do it.
if I can get them to play with Legos down in the basement and leave me alone, because I'm like, hey guys, just leave me alone. But there was one point where they were playing with Legos in the bedroom next door, and the door was open, and I was doing something. I don't remember what it was, but like I heard the one go, "Hey, look at mom right now," and I was like doing like something with the weight, and I was like, "Yeah, right. Look at mom. Like she's so strong." So I love being able to like work out in front of them like that, and especially like
Yes.
riding the bike all winter long, like them seeing me do that is I think, really important. So I'm definitely not against
Huge
working out with
motivation.
them, but sometimes I do
Hmm.
feel like I'm not very productive because it takes so long, because they're bugging me, or I just get distracted because it's not like, where I sit on the bike on the trainer where I'm basically forced to stay there and continuously move. Whereas when I'm
Yeah.
shifting, that little break in between like sets is where I get distracted. So I need to do a better job of getting focused and just
Well, I think
decking
you
it
can
out.
just, and it's a weird way to look at it, but like the workout that you have in front of you, you're following one of my workouts, see it as a checklist and just be like, okay, like I need to go away and handle this thing with the kids right now, but I'm going to come back and I'm going to check this list off. And just take the concept of like perfect recovery time or intensity or any of that out of the equation and just be like, okay, this is my checklist. We're just going to get it done, whether it takes 20 minutes or an hour and 20 minutes. So that's your mindset Friday. But then the problem we have is like, okay, you would have done your high intensity session Thursday after a zone 2 day Wednesday. You probably would want to try flipping that. And that way you could do your high intensity on Wednesday along with your strength training session. And then Thursday is a zone 2 day. And now what you have is this like fluctuation in your schedule. You had a day off, you have a hard day, you have an easy day, and then you progressively get harder through the weekend with your volume. That would be a better flow. And it might be a little hard to get used to on the Wednesdays, but that's what I would try first for integrating the strength training. Because again, put at least one day. Two can even be better for a lot of people. But again, I think for your schedule, that's perfect. And so that's what I would recommend trying out. Now you have the question, okay, I have a double day. So which session do I do first? For your situation, you do the session that works better with your schedule. That's it. Like that's
Yeah.
you focus on getting that work done within that 14-hour period you're awake during the day, or 16-hour, for you probably 20-hour period you're awake during the day. Yeah, and it's also something to consider once, the training intensity comes up. It's crazy because you're like, "Oh, man, I'm trying so desperately just to make time for this, but now I need more recovery time." So, it's all real things to consider, and that's why you know, whether or not you do your ride or your strength training session first, I think for you, the most important thing, or people in a similar situation, is literally just to make sure that it works with your schedule. Because for people, especially going to a gym, there's the commute. There's so many things to consider that are very personal that only you could really know what's better. And for some people, it can flip flop. Now, I'll tell you, when from a perfect science standpoint, you have more specific goals with your riding performance. And I'll just throw one out there. Let's just say, I know you use Trainer Road, boosting your FTP, very tangible metric that you're trying to improve. That means that hitting specific numbers on your rides is more important than whether or not you deadlift 50 pounds or 60 pounds. So you saving your energy for that key workout of the day, and I'm totally comfortable saying that that would be the key workout. I understand that, like, priorities, it really just comes down to your performance. You want to perform there, so save the energy there and then bring kind of the leftovers into your strength training session. Because again, the most important thing is the consistency of showing up and getting it done. Adding a little weight on every single week isn't the priority. When you can do it, you should definitely do it. And there's times where, okay, you've been strength training for a year, body weight only. This is probably not enough load for you anymore. And we're going to have to actually get weight on you so that you don't end up just turning this into like a Zumba class, essentially, where you're just doing 1,000 squats or something like that. So there's a point where you do have to add the load and make the changes and make sure the intensity is there. But for most people, the priority is the on the bike performance or their run splits or whatever it may be.
So for people who've never like lifted a weight before, they're looking to like really start to include some strength training in their routine. What are some of like your go-to baseline equipment if they don't have access to a gym? Maybe they live out in the boonies like I do. What are like your top priority things like that are kind of like more on the affordable side? Like what would you encourage people to purchase?
I'll start with the most affordable and the most usable, and we'll kind of ramp it up from there. So,
Okay.
the first thing is a foam roller. A foam roller, for one, should be used, in my opinion, by every endurance athlete. There's all sorts of mixed, split opinions
Yeah.
scientifically on whether or not it works. I'm a huge fan. especially after being injured. I can't even imagine recovering without this thing. So I would recommend a foam roller and a full size foam roller. You can get them for $20 on Amazon, because not only do you get the benefits of the self myofascial release, which is that massage that you do on it, but you can use it for leverage on strength workouts. For example, instead of just doing a body weight squat, you could grab the foam roller, put it between your hands long ways, and do an overhead squat with the foam roller. And now this is adding load at an angle that you're going to feel throughout your entire upper back way more than you would with just a traditional body weight squat. There's also core exercises that you can do on it and stretches that you can do on it. So it makes it a very versatile piece of equipment when you know that it's not just for massage. So foam roll is number one. This isn't even a shameless plug, it's just a plug. I have a 30-day beginner bodyweight program that just uses a foam roller. That's why I created it, because I know that people are in this position. The next thing I'd probably get would be bands. The mini loop bands around the ankles are great for injury prevention. It's funny because it seems like such a small thing to do, but it has huge impact on endurance athletes who are in just this like sagittal plane, which is just constant forward and back motion over and over and over again. To get some tension side to side makes a huge difference for your durability. So a mini loop band, the longer looped bands that you can use with your upper body are extremely important. In fact, I was just doing a calendar on Training Peaks for a lifetime Grand Prix athlete, and they're getting ready to go out to Leadville. They have 3 other races after that. They're doing their home workouts where they have a pretty wide access to equipment, but then they're just taking those bands that I talked about with them on the road for 3 weeks. They're not going to get stronger during those 3 weeks, but that's not really the goal anyways with their races, but they are going to maintain. So again, that decline that I talk about over the summer isn't happening the same way. And so those loop bands can really come into practice. And again, summer maintenance program designed to go with you anywhere. It's just one 30-pound looped band. So very, very cost effective and a nice step in just loading your body in different ways.
Travel friendly too. Well, I'll just add that in there.
Yeah, I don't think
Compact.
there's anything more travel friendly than that. I mean, you have TRX straps, which are also really good. It's crazy to think that they're less versatile than a band, but they might be a little bit. But TRX is also great. One thing about bands and like a TRX is that it really allows you to do pulling motions very easily. And anyone that goes from sitting at a desk to getting on a bike, especially, even, I mean, running posture can be horrendous. Pulling motions are huge for endurance athletes because they work so many muscles that we can't in our sport. And so for you to squeeze your shoulder blades together under tension and help not only your back muscles develop, but just improve your posture, there's so much value in just even the performance that you get from it from a health standpoint. So those are great. A pull-up bar, hanging from a pull-up bar alone, not only is great for your shoulder mobility, but it's also great for your posture because the muscles that you need to hold you in that position, your grip strength, it's a spine decompression. So there's these layers of things that very simple pieces of equipment do. And those would probably be the most cost effective pieces that I can think of. And really from there, you can go to a single kettlebell. That's my favorite piece of equipment of all time. And then adjustable dumbbells. When you get adjustable dumbbells and an adjustable bench, now the variety that you have is almost endless. And after that point, you're really looking at getting bigger pieces of equipment, you know, like barbells and squat racks and things like that. And again, these are all progressions when you really want to focus on strength and get the most out of your maximal power output. They're natural progressions and you don't have to do them, but there comes a time when it's probably the best fit for everybody eventually.
Let's talk about the strength versus activation. I've heard you talk about this before, and let's break down the difference in when you would include either of them in your program.
So, strength training is the process of overloading your muscle
Mm-hmm.
and breaking down the muscle to the point that it's fatigued and needs to rebuild. And when it adapts to the stimulus of that heavy load, it becomes stronger and oftentimes bigger. And so that is the process of basically breakdown and rebuild that you go through with strength training. So there's fatigue that comes along with it, there's time that comes along with the recovery. Activation's kind of the opposite. Activation is a light movement that you do to target muscle groups so that they're firing and responding really, really quickly. And so there's the goal with activation is not to create any fatigue, but it's to literally like turn the light switch on, that connection between your brain and your body, so that when you go off the start line, you feel primed and activated. And you've talked about triathletes using bands to warm up their shoulders.
Or like Teele
There's,
at the tour, I saw a clip of him doing with
yeah,
bands, like some sort of like squat movement. I'm trying to remember. I just remember seeing him use bands. And yeah, I'm thinking of like Gwen Jorgensen is one that I've seen videos of her on social media doing some sort of warm ups with bands before the swim. So you're saying that's not necessarily like a warm up, but that's more of like a neuromuscular thing that you're getting those warmed up.
it is more neuromuscular than just purely like increasing your overall body temperature and blood flow, but you do that to an extent. So it's kind of a double whammy, but it's also not the same type of warm up where it's like, okay, 10 minutes zone 2, let's get the heart rate up, start sweating. That's not really the goal. The goal is more neuromuscular, but as a byproduct of having to do those movements, your shoulders do get a little bit warm. Your hips do get a little bit warm. And so typically you feel a lot better, like you loosen up. Hopefully you're doing some stuff that has full range of motion. I'm just such a proponent of stretching and like these things that, it's crazy. People literally will watch a video of Tade doing that and they'll be like, oh, nobody does that. Pros don't do that. Oh, it's changing right now, which is cool. And I've been preaching this from the mountaintops for the last 6 years now, very specifically. And even 6 years ago versus now, it seems like the debate of whether or not strength training or activation or anything like this makes a difference it's less a debate about that, and it's more about how do we do it. It's kind of the questions we're talking about now. So that is refreshing, but it's crazy how people discredit these things. I don't even know why. I think they just do. I think it's almost
Yeah.
like this like personal defense mechanism of like, hey, if I say it's not important, then I don't have to do it. Maybe it's like accountability. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. So activation is more something you do before work, like a big workout, you would say, or a long workout, like any workout. It sounds like, and then especially before races, where you're doing some like light band work, you're really helping get those muscles and things to fire. It takes what, 10, 15 minutes? Like, tell me more about
Oh,
like that.
five,
5 minutes,
three,
three.
three,
Like, you're
and
not
it
trying to fatigue the muscles at all. You're just trying to like get that
You're just
movement
trying to wake
in.
them up. Yeah,
Yeah.
you really are just trying to make sure that they're awake, responsive, and doing it pre-race is a good idea for that reason. Also doing it pre high intensity workout. If you were to do it before a longer workout, that would be more of an injury prevention goal. So for example, one of the things I'm dealing with post injury is it's pretty much IT band syndrome. And so for me to take the time to foam roll the outside of my leg and some parts of my hip, my TFL that I was stretching before we did this podcast, and then to follow it up with some glute med activation. So it's the muscle on like the outer top of your butt. And I'll do that with those mini loop bands. There's a variety of different ways to do it, but one way is just that lateral walk side to side to isolate the glute medius and make sure it's firing, which takes tension off the outside of my leg and helps me use my VMO on the inside of my knee. It brings stability down the line. For me to do that before a 3-hour zone 2 ride is super important right now, because if I don't and I go out and that leg is tight from the start, I'm almost just adding strength to the compensation. And so I want to get my body firing properly from the go so that I'm training every single rep, and this being the pedal stroke, to reinforce the muscle groups that I should be using. And that's why you would do it for a long workout opposed to like a short workout. In between sessions, if you're perfectly healthy, it's a normal zone 2 ride for 1 hour. You don't have back pain. You don't have patella tendonitis. You don't have like a shoulder impingement. Do you need to do an activation? No, you don't. I mean, and that's another argument I get to a lot of stuff. They're like, oh, you shouldn't have to do that. And I'm like, I know you really shouldn't have to, but we're human and we lived in a flawed world, and we're not perfect. So here we are. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Make sure you're doing some activation, especially before those hard workouts and those races. 3 minutes, just something to get those muscles firing. 2 days a week, especially of strength training, especially when you're in kind of that peak season. Obviously, you could, if you can fit in more during your off season, that'd be ideal. Talk to me about what is one strength move that's always in your weekly routine?
Some type of a hinging movement.
Okay, tell me more about that.
There's a lot of variations of hinging type movements, but the goal is to maintain a neutral spine while you bend over. This is what a deadlift looks like, essentially. It's what a kettlebell swing looks like. That's the actual motion that you're doing. The goal is to strengthen your posterior chain. This is really important for most of the population. I mean, beyond just endurance athletes, this is just like a human movement thing, especially with our lifestyles of sitting in chairs constantly, in the chair in the car, in the chair at work, in the chair here. You're constantly flexed and forward. And so over time, the muscles in your back just become weaker, and we have to intentionally strengthen those. And in fact, there's a lot of coaches in the general fitness industry that will prioritize like a 2-to-1 ratio, like 2 back exercises versus 1 anterior exercise, like for almost all their programming. So that's how important it is. And when you do something like a deadlift with good form, not only are you strengthening your hamstrings and your glutes, but you're also strengthening your back, you're strengthening your grip, and all of these other great things for longevity. So I would encourage anybody to make sure at least once a week they're doing some type of a hinging movement. It could be 5 heavy deadlifts, it could be 20 kettlebell swings, or it could be body weight. Great example of a body weight workout that I did earlier this week. It's a wide leg hinge. In fact, if anybody is familiar with the foundations training, have you ever heard of that? Like the foundations protocol? A great video on YouTube. It's
Yeah, we can
Dr.
include a
Eric
link in
Goodman.
our show notes.
The workout has this wide leg stance where you hinge forward and raise your arms overhead and you press your palms together, and it's incredible the tension that this creates down your entire posterior chain. And you can do this body weight. Holding it for a minute, if you are active in the position, means that you're actively reaching, you're actively squeezing your glutes. It's amazing like what it can really do for you. So any type of hinging motion would be my go-to.
Speaking of backs, so I have raced a few times now. Any of my races that are like 2.5 hours or longer, I get back pain during them. And I will admit, during them, I'm like, oh, I gotta really add in some strength training and some more core work. That definitely like crosses my mind. But also, I am wearing a hydration pack and I don't always train with it. When I do, I don't tend to have any back pain from it, but I also think just the weight of that and then the stress, like the higher intensity and length of the race is adding to that. If other cyclists or even runners are having back pain, what is your usual go-to in terms of like incorporating some strength training to help accommodate?
The back pain is typically, and this is for people who don't have disc issues or some
Yeah.
type of
Yeah,
structural
assuming
issue with their
assuming that.
spine.
Yes.
Yeah, which is the majority. Most people don't, but a lot of people feel back pain on the bike. And oftentimes, the majority of the time, it's from the erectors in your spine and your QL, like these lower muscles in your spine, the muscles around your vertebrae. They are working harder than they should because your core and your glutes are not firing the way that they should be.
Okay.
And so the position of a bike naturally makes you want to turn off the like glutes and the core. And I don't want to go into the weeds on like saddle position and all these things, but you have to strengthen these things off of the bike to work in unison together so that by the time you get to the bike, they're so strong that they can assist the way that they need to. And ultimately, you have to get it to the point that it's autonomous. Like you don't have to think about it. But I'll tell you, over the last 10 years, if I ever felt back pain on the bike, which is extremely rare, all I have to do is remind myself to brace my core on my bike and it goes away and then it stays away. So for somebody that doesn't normally experience back pain, most likely you're just getting fatigued and you're just getting a little sloppy and you just got to tighten it up real quick and then you can be good to go. If you don't have that strength to begin with, it doesn't matter what kind of cue you give yourself. It's really not going to make a difference because your body's literally trained for your back to basically just compensate for those other muscles. And that's why this hinging motion becomes so important. It also means that you need to train your core as well. And there's this thing you do with your core training that makes a huge difference. It's called a posterior tilt. And this is you tilting your pelvis backwards, essentially like toward your body, so that you can activate your lower abs. And I'll give you an example. If you're laying on the ground on your back and your feet are planted so your knees are bent, naturally you have that arch in your low back. Like most people can put their hand in the gap between their low back and the ground. If you were to posterior tilt your pelvis and push your low back into the ground, so that fill in that space with your low back, that is a posterior tilt position. And doing things like leg raises from the ground, once you have that posterior tilt, are going to translate way better to the bike because you're getting the lower ab activation. And oftentimes that's the thing that people like have no engagement over, no strength over. And that really helps your low back a lot in in conjunction with your glutes. And
Mm.
so strong active glutes, strong active lower abs specifically, no back pain.
I like that idea though of also making sure that you're engaging your core while you're on the bike, because that might just be for me what's happening is that because I'm in this race situation and I'm so focused on it that there's some forgetting to really engage that core.
Yeah. And remember too with your core, I mean, all muscles are like this, but with your core, because it's stabilizing your spine, like even sitting in a chair, there's a little bit of activation that you want to do. So think of it like a dial opposed to an on and off light switch. It really is dialing it up and dialing it down. Max contraction for your abs would be like, I'm about to punch you in the stomach, you're bracing, it's like you let all the air out, everything's tight, like, but you can't do that on the bike because your heart rate's 175 and you're trying to stay on this group and the back pain's coming up. But what you could do is you could do like a 30% core engagement where it's just enough to be like, okay, I'm going to kind of, make sure my low abs are firing. I'm going to make sure that as I'm using my hip flexors a little bit in the pedal stroke, it's coming from the center of my body and like all these things are connected. So that little thought and be like, okay, just like 30% activation, that's realistic. And you can actually do that. Don't have the expectation that you're just going to stop for a second and just
Yeah.
like totally bear
Yeah.
down in that position.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind if you're going to put that into practice. And I totally recommend it.
Yeah. Love that. Yeah. Cause I don't have back pain any other time that I'm riding, even if I go out and ride for 3 hours outside or in the trainer. It was just during those couple races where that's when I'm like, this sucks.
Do
And
you do you ride much off road besides the races that you do? Like, do you train off road?
no, I don't do any like mountain biking or anything. I'm a chicken shit when it comes to off road.
Do
So
you
I
do you ride
just,
gravel though?
yeah, I'll ride gravel, but our gravel roads around Duluth aren't super rough. Like they're just like a
Okay.
dirt road. They're not. I'm hoping to do a little bit more traveling to experience some different gravel roads for sure.
Well, there's things that definitely don't help with back pain. The rougher the terrain is, the more out of the saddle type things that you have to do, the harder it can be on your low back, especially if you have that instability. So, just something I would consider as well. Like that's one thing where like the time on the trainer isn't going to replicate. But
Yeah,
again, it's super important and super efficient in so many other
yeah,
ways. But like
yeah,
that could be a factor in it as well. It's just
yeah,
that terrain difference.
yeah, absolutely. Well, Derek, this was so great. I can't thank you enough for being here today. If people are interested in following you or checking out your programming, which I cannot recommend enough, your app is. I was really blown away when you like when I got on the app. I was like, oh, this is nice. And when you said checklist, like it really is like a little checklist
Yeah.
on there, and I really liked that a lot. So, where can people find you and follow you and check out what you have to offer?
Thank you for the shout out there. That really means a lot actually because we're actually in the process of changing the app platform to make it even more user friendly. And so the product is going to be even better toward the end of summer and I'm very excited about that transition. I'm also one-on-one training now through Training Peaks using their new Strength Builder platform. So there's a few different ways for people to train with me. Of course, if you're local, you can come on down to the studio, but
Yeah.
everything
Well,
is through.
are you near Reno? Is that where you're at?
Yeah, relatively close. I am between Sacramento and Tahoe in a city called Granite Bay. Yeah, it's an amazing spot in Northern California. But go to doubthealth.com. That'll give you all the subscription options for the platform, and you can access these workouts through the app. I recommend using the Quick Start if you do use the app, and you can contact me through there. But Derek at doubthealth.com is my email. So let
Okay.
me know if you have any
Yeah.
questions.
I'll include links and contact info on all of that in the show notes too.
And I would say follow my Instagram. That's where I'm the most active. I also have a podcast, YouTube channel. So pretty much on all the outlets.
You're at Dialed Health on Instagram, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, Derek, thank you so much again. This was great. Keep doing what you're doing. Every time I see you strength training, I'm like, this is my reminder, Alex. But it's very inspirational. It's like I'm just so impressed, and I'll get back into it here soon. I promise.
Have you done the 30-day beginner bodyweight program yet?
I did do that. Yeah.
You started with that one. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
And then after that,
When have you been?
I needed to pick something else, and then it was a little bit of analysis paralysis of like which one to pick because there were so many tempting ones. So
Interesting.
yeah.
That's really good to know. I'd probably recommend the dumbbell program for you because it's simple and it's a progression in intensity, but it's still 2 days a week and it's not
Yeah.
that much of a
And
progression.
I have dumbbells, so yeah.
And you have a bench, and that's all you need.
I have a bench. I do actually have a TRX system in my closet that my husband used for a while. Should do it the TRX one. That would be cool. We've got the hooks on our ceiling in the basement, so I could totally do those.
Yeah. Yeah, I would go to the dumbbell one next.
All right,
Anyways,
I will.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Derek. Thanks again for joining me for another episode of the Endurance Eats podcast. This conversation is your reminder, and mine for that fact, that strength training doesn't have to be complicated, and it absolutely has a place in every endurance athlete's toolbox. Make sure you've hit that subscribe button, leave a review, and share on social. This helps me continue to grow the program and attract more amazing guests. Until next time, eat well, train strong, and keep showing up. I'll see you in the next episode.